Motor learning is a complex field of study with many concepts to understand in order to teach effectively. Today we will be talking about two of those concepts, feedback and reinforcement as they apply to yoga. Yoga is a 3,000-year-old tradition that has become popular around the world as a more holistic approach to health and wellness. Yoga is a mind-body activity that combines muscle movements with a mindfulness focus on the breath, awareness of the body, and energy flow. Today we will focus on teaching and learning a yoga vinyasa sequence. The vinyasa sequence is a core movement to the practice of yoga, and this sequence will include the plank, chaturanga, upward facing dog, and downward facing dog movements. My student Chet will be learning the sequence. The main teaching objectives when instructing a student how to perform a vinyasa are to teach the student how to perform each pose and position correctly, how to link the breath and the movements together, and how to flow between each movement. To begin the sequence, place the hands directly under the shoulders, arms fully extended as if about to perform a push-up. Ground the toes to the floor with the heels pushing back and squeeze the abdominals to stabilize the body. Neutralize the neck and spine by looking at a spot on the floor just beyond the hands. The head should be in line with the back. Hold the position for 15 seconds, breathing in and out. Okay, 15 seconds at best. To transition to the chaturanga, roll forward on your toes, hug the elbows into the body, and on an exhale, begin to lower yourself until the elbows are at a 90-degree angle. The tops of the shoulders should be straight back, pulled away from the ears, and the chest should be broadened. On an inhale, the head of the shoulders roll back, the arms straighten, and the tops of the feet are resting on the floor for upward facing dog. The head is gazing forward or slightly up, the chest is open and not collapsed, the sternum is lifted while the tailbone is reaching back towards the heels. The thighs are engaged and lifted off the ground, and all 10 toes are now pushing into the ground to stabilize the ankles. On the next exhale, lift the hips, bringing the toes slightly towards the hands, grounding them, and lifting the hips towards the ceiling, bringing the head down under the shoulders. The weight is back towards the heels, the thighs are pushing back, feeling a deep stretch in the hamstrings, and the back is flat.
Feedback is a universal term that defines the information an individual receives either during or after their performance of a motor skill to let them know how well they performed. Augmented feedback is a form of external feedback and provides the learner with feedback about their performance that cannot be detected by their own sensory system. Augmented feedback is important because it gives the learner a goal to work towards and motivates them to strive towards that goal. There are two types of augmented feedback. First, knowledge of results, and second, knowledge of performance. Knowledge of results, or KR, is information related to the performance outcome of a skill and describes whether or not a goal was achieved during the skill. This feedback is given after the performance of a skill. Knowledge of performance, or KP, relates to the specific characteristics of the movement. The ending position of the vinyasa is the downward facing dog. Knowledge of results can be given to the student in the form of pictures depicting right versus wrong, or an explanation of what they did well or need to improve on. Additionally, during the vinyasa flow, the learner moves from a plank to a chaturanga. This position can be challenging because it requires the student to engage core muscles and support their entire body weight on their toes and palms. Because of this, many people let their back sag down or allow their legs to touch the floor. To avoid this, the teacher must provide external feedback to correct the deficiency. One method of feedback to help the student learn how to properly perform the movement is to place a fist under their chest and instruct them not to touch the fist. Alternatively, a block could be placed below their legs with the same instructions to avoid touching the block. This will give the student visual and tangible feedback and is an example of knowledge of performance. Proprioception is another central concept of motor learning and is a form of internal feedback. Proprioception is the body's own sense of position, movement, effort, force, and heaviness. The receptors involved in this process are located in the muscles, joints, and skin. Coaches and teachers can help a learner understand their sense of proprioception by explaining to them what the body should look and feel like when performing a movement.
Start with wrists shoulder width apart. Step your feet as wide as the yoga mat. Send the weight into the legs by pressing into the base of each finger, specifically the thumb and the index finger. Straighten the arms and hug the triceps together. To avoid hunching the back, lift yourself onto both toes and send the weight back into the legs. You should feel a nice stretch in the hamstrings and in the calves. Pull your torso in towards your thighs and create a nice line from the fingertips to the spine. The hips should be reaching up to the ceiling by pressing away from the yoga mat.
Reinforcement and motivation are also important concepts of motor learning and can impact an athlete's performance in many aspects. Reinforcement is an event that strengthens or increases the behavior it follows and is categorized by positive or negative reinforcement. Positive reinforcement is giving a satisfying consequence as a result of a desirable behavior that usually results in the behavior being repeated. One key example when teaching a student how to perform a vinyasa sequence is to directly praise the student for performing the move correctly. This can be as simple as saying, "Great job."
Good job keeping your triceps together. Very good. Opening your chest. Good with your breathing. Your back is very straight. Excellent. Well done.
Another form of positive reinforcement is internal reinforcement. This is internal to the athlete but can be nurtured by the coach. One way to do this would be to encourage the athlete to set goals. When teaching the vinyasa, for example, a beginning goal could be to hold the starting plank correctly for 15 seconds. The other type of reinforcement is negative reinforcement. Negative reinforcement is removing an unsatisfying consequence after a desirable behavior is exhibited to reinforce the behavior and increase the likelihood it will happen again. For example, if the student was not keeping their back straight during the downward facing dog, the coach would continue to tell the student to do so. Once the student has corrected their form, the coach would stop commenting.
Remember to fully extend your arms, straighten your back. Okay, bring your hips up a little bit. Don't sag. Straighten your back. You want a nice line between your neck and your feet.
Negative reinforcement is often mistaken for punishment. However, the two are mutually exclusive. While negative reinforcement works to strengthen a behavior, punishment weakens a behavior. Punishment would not be used while teaching the yoga vinyasa, but an example could be having the student do additional core exercises if their knees continue to touch the ground during the plank.
Okay, your stomach hit the floor again. Give me 5 crunches.
One benefit to negative reinforcement is that the behavior is strengthened by the athlete avoiding a negative outcome. One disadvantage is that this can be confusing to a student if the teacher does not say anything at all. The student may not know what they are doing wrong and therefore not able to correct the behavior. One big disadvantage of using punishment is that it usually causes some level of shame for the offender and may result in them being resentful towards the coach or the skill they are performing. The positive outcome of punishment is that the improper behavior is usually corrected and not repeated again. Motor learning is an intricate field of study that requires a lot of exploration and understanding to be an effective teacher and learner. This applies to every skill that is learned. Yoga is no exception to this rule. Feedback is an important aspect of learning yoga because it allows the learner to recognize if they are performing the skill correctly or incorrectly. With this comes knowledge of performance, knowledge of results, and proprioception. Yoga requires one to be completely aware of their mind and body in the present moment, making these elements even more important. Additionally, reinforcement and motivation are two key concepts that greatly impact an athlete's performance and can influence their decision to continue learning or not. Coaches and teachers must understand these concepts in order to be successful.